We're gonna go back to the energy. Let's do this, man. Let's do this.
Right.
Hey, Tom Terwilliger, the Achievement Mentor here, and I've got a special friend with me today. And this is a friend who's not only out there doing some incredible good in terms of coaching people and mentoring people, but someone who's been a personal friend of mine for years. We go back to the 4th, 5th grade. Our paths sort of went in different directions in many respects, but we've connected again, and I'm thrilled about that. Jerry Gladstone, the author of the Common Thread, which is going to be published very shortly by Morgan James. Jerry and I are here in Colorado, my home, and we were out in Boulder today, and we went for a nice hike. Now, you're a sea level guy, man. You know, when I say sea level, I don't mean ABC. I mean at sea level Florida, right?
Yep.
So the oxygen up here is a little bit tougher. So we took a pretty challenging, because he wanted a challenge. So we took a challenging path up in Boulder, and man, it was awesome. The main thing that really stands out in my mind amongst the conversation we were having was that when we got to a point on the path, clearly one direction or the other as the path split was harder than the other. And I asked you to make the choice. I said, which way do you want to go? Do you remember what you said?
Absolutely.
What did you say?
Whatever the toughest way is.
Sure enough, that was up towards the Flatirons, and it was definitely a much steeper hike. But why would you give that answer? Why would you say the toughest direction? Why not the easiest path?
Any opportunity to be challenged, to compete, to take the tougher path is wonderful. You're going to learn a lot. I want to see if I'm really in good shape. I know you are. I want to see if I am. I think that I am. So I wanted to take that challenge. Was I going to prove that I'm in shape, or am I going to prove that I need to go back to the drawing board and do more aerobics or anything else? There's always life lessons when you take on challenges. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be all kinds of obstacles when you take a difficult path. But the more you could do that's difficult, the better you're going to succeed. You're going to learn. You're going to self-discover what you're really made out of. You're going to learn to push yourself. So in everyday life, if you have an opportunity to push yourself and take a difficult challenge on, take it on, because it's going to make your life that much simpler on an everyday.
And I think that much richer as well, because when we take on challenges, there's something innate about all of us. We want to be able to step up and meet the challenge, but unfortunately we don't put those challenges in front of us enough. And it was interesting because as we took that path, shortly after making that decision, which you made, we came across a boulder field. And that boulder field was a lot. I mean, we were on a path and it was steep and it was challenging, but the boulder field required some real navigation. We had to be really careful, really cautious. And along the way, in the middle of the boulder field, you and I stopped. We just stopped and we just started talking. We took it in. We took in the view. And I know that's one of the things that you really wanted to cherish while you were out here was the view and taking that in. And there's a lesson in that, isn't it? Even in the hard times, sometimes you got to stop, take a deep breath, and see where you're at, don't you?
You're 100% correct. In other words, when I was going up there, if you use metaphors in everyday life, what I wanted to see is, did my hard work pay off? Did I have the steps to navigate up there? So was I really prepared? But then also, when you're going through something as far as a goal, you know, a long-term goal that you have, that you're fighting for more than anything else, you have to take the good in as well. You have to reward yourself. So I was willing to turn around and say, okay, let me take a break. Let me take in the good too, which what did it do? It re-energized me to keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it was interesting. You didn't take that break. We didn't take that break because although you were sweating good, man, I got to tell you, you had some good drip going. I was sweating too, but you were there. And again, you're from sea level, number one, you're working a little bit harder, but it wasn't about taking that rest. And sometimes we just need that rest. We need to take a deep breath. But it was about taking in what your surrounding was and really appreciating that, taking the good in with it. Now, the book, The Common Thread. I mean, you've got some incredible interviews in there with some of the A-list celebrities. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. One of my favorites certainly is Sylvester Stallone. You've got Randy Couture. You've got so many others in there. You know, we'll talk about it in the future in terms of how you gain access. Now, I know you have personal relationships with a lot of these people, but gaining access to those interviews, that's something else again. And that requires some influence, which is some of the things that you're teaching. But let's talk about the common thread. With every thread, there are stitches, right, along the way?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, maybe you could share with us some of the most common or some of the most powerful stitches in that thread that people could put into practice or create a mindset around to be able to help them achieve a higher level of success in their own lives.
I'm going to do one better for you. I'm going to save people the time that they're going to have to read the book. A good friend of mine last week said, hey, Jerry, I'm not going to have time to read the book. I'm going to challenge you to something. I want you to describe the book in 3 words or less to me. And I want to be able to really take it in. What is the common thread of all these people? And I said, I'm up for the challenge. And if you really want to know the challenge or the common thread that these people all have are 3 words. Here are the 3 words. Always moving forward. What do I mean by that? Many people think that these people are born with silver spoons in their mouth, that somehow they just became successful overnight. Trust me when I tell you, these people have had all sorts of adversities, all sorts of challenges, all sorts of trapdoors, which we spoke about earlier today.
The same trapdoors, the same challenges we face.
Self-doubt, you know, low self-esteem. The difference between them and everybody else, it's not about pondering, it's not about procrastinating, it's about always moving forward under any and all circumstances. They're not into self-pity, although sometimes they feel bad for themselves. If they feel like they need a new skill, if they feel like they have to reinvent themselves, here's an important thing. They get out of their comfort zone. In order to get out of your comfort zone and enter something else, what do you have to do? You always have to move forward. So if there's one message I could deliver, no matter what happens to you in your life, keep this in mind. Always move forward. There is a finish line out there with your name on it. You may not know when it is or when you're going to get there. It doesn't matter. You're going to get there. Just keep moving forward.
You know, one of my favorite interviews, certainly in the book, because he's one of my favorite actors. Certainly it goes back to the Rocky days. I love Rocky. Who doesn't? He's one of the most endearing characters Hollywood has ever produced. And it really wasn't Hollywood that produced it. It was Stallone himself that produced that character. And you told me today, when we first got in the car, when I picked you up at the airport, you told me something that Stallone said to you that may or may not be in the interview in the book, but share with me what he said, because this is a guy who's now in his 60s and is still doing it.
Absolutely.
He's done it. It looks great, but he's out there freaking doing it in Hollywood. I mean, so what do you say to you that kind of keeps him moving forward?
Let me backtrack a little bit. When I was 16 years old, like a lot of other 16 years old, low self-esteem, overweight, did really bad in school, didn't believe in myself. Rocky came out in 1976. I was 16 years old. He made me believe I didn't have to be the biggest, strongest, smartest, or anything. With heart, drive, and determination, I could become what I want to become. He planted the seed. 30 years later, I find myself in a room with him doing a business deal. And I had the opportunity to sit down with this man. And I felt so empowered. He said, you don't realize what the potential is that you have within yourself. He goes, look at me. I still love to compete. He's talking like a 20-year-old. I want to compete. I love to compete. You have to learn, and you want to have that drive and that competition. And then he ended like this. He said, listen, one day somebody's going to try to take me down, try to replace me as an action hero. I'm not going to let it happen. I'm competitive, and I'm going to fight every step of the way. This is a 65-year-old guy who's not doing it for the money, who's not doing it for a lot of things that we do it for, but he still has the drive. He still has the drive.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me because, again, one of my favorite quotes is, of course, from Rocky, the last Rocky, which was, if you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth, but you got to be willing to take the hits and keep moving forward. You got to be able to keep moving forward. And in essence, he's personified that in many respects. Hey, think what you want about Stallone's acting. It doesn't matter. But he's personified that ability to keep moving forward, to take the hits, because he has taken his hits, and he's moving forward.
Do you realize that he is the only actor? Take any actor, take De Niro, take anybody, it doesn't matter. He is the only actor to be #1 at the box office for 5 decades. For 50 years, he's had a #1 movie at the box office. No other actor could say that. So what is he doing? He's always moving forward. And he's had his trials and tribulations.
Right.
He's always moving forward, and that's what we all have to do.
Another great interview you have in the book, and again, we only have a few moments left, is Randy Couture, certainly one of the greatest MMA fighters, UFC fighters of all time. And here's the guy, he's just taken on a recent challenge, Dancing with the Stars. I mean,
the best lesson we can always learn from Randy is this: get out of your comfort zone. Randy was an Olympian, a decorated wrestler, a UFC champion. He was a UFC title, I believe, 3 times after he was 40 years old. He's a cage fighter, okay? But he had to reinvent himself after his career was over. And I sat down with Randy and I said, well, what are you going to do? I want to be an actor. I want to be an action hero. How are you going to do that? I'm going to use the same mindset, the same strategies and good practices that I used while training for MMA. Okay? Getting out of my comfort zone. I'm going to get mentors. I'm going to train. I'm going to do what I have to do. Now, look at this guy. He's on Dancing with the Stars, so far out of his comfort zone. Did you see him? Oh, my God. He was wonderful. Are we all willing to get out of our comfort zone as much as him and put it on the line? If we did, chances are we would accomplish a lot more.
Absolutely. So there's the lesson. There's the common thread. But to read the rest of those interviews is very, very powerful. Read Randy's, read Stallone, countless others. I have to say, I'm proud to be amongst those in the book itself. It's called The Common Thread. You're going to be able to pick it up. Meanwhile, is one of the common threads also a blue hat? I mean, do you have to have a blue hat to
when
be
you
successful?
have thin hair or not much hair, any color hat works. Any color hat.
There's the lesson. Any color hat. Hey, listen, Jerry Gladstone, you're awesome, brother. I'm glad to reconnect.
Absolutely, bro.
And we'll talk to you guys soon. I hope to see you in the winner's circle.